Students, we have seen that inflation is defined as a general and sustained rise in prices over a period of time. It can also be defined as a weighted average prices, change in the weighted average prices of a basket of goods over a period of time. Now, inflation can be differentiated into different categories based on certain aspects. There are mainly three types into which inflation can be categorized. These are based on the causes of inflation, second one on the speed or rate of inflation, and the third one on the constituents of the index of inflation. Okay, so here inflation, the types of inflation, it can be based on the causes, second one on the speed or rate of inflation, and thirdly based on the constituents of the index, constituents of the price index. Based on the causes, again we can differentiate inflation into three types. First one is demand pull inflation, second one is cost push inflation, and third one is mixed demand pull cost inflation. So based on causes we have demand pull, then we have cost push, and thirdly we have mixed demand pull and cost push inflation. Mixed demand pull and cost push inflation. It is the three types of inflation which we differentiate on the basis of causes. So here the first one is the demand pull inflation. This is generally known as a Keynesian type inflation, though every school has its own definition of inflation. Demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation is defined as a sustained rise in prices due to pressure from demand side. That is, when there is an increase in aggregate demand due to various reasons, the desire of the people to purchase commodities may increase, and this will result in higher prices. Okay, so the classical economists have given their own definition, and the Keynesians are also given their definition. According to the classical economists, the inflation is caused by excess money supply. We have seen the quantity theory of money, which states the relationship between money supply and prices based on an identity M is equal to PT, where M is the money supply, V is the velocity of circulation, P is prices, and T is number of transactions. It assumes that V and T are constant, and so M and P are directly and proportionately related. Any increase in M or money supply will lead to a direct and proportionate increase in prices. So the classical economist says that when the central bank increases money supply, then there will be an excess supply of money which will change the same number of commodities that are available, because increasing money supply does not raise the real output, and therefore an increased money supply chases the same level of goods, which will result in higher prices. So this is the explanation given by classical economists for a demand pull inflation. Keynesian economists differ with regard to the classical economists in demand pull inflation, and according to them, it is not an increase in money supply that causes inflation. According to the Keynesians, money supply is not a factor which causes inflation, but it is the aggregate demand that causes inflation. This aggregate demand can increase, an increase in aggregate demand that can cause inflation. This aggregate demand can increase due to either increase in consumption or investment. Consumption is a subjective factor according to the Keynesians, and it's not going to change in the short run. Similarly, investment, there are two types of investment: induced and autonomous investment. Induced investment is profit motivated, and it also is assumed to be constant in the short run. And these changes in autonomous investment that results in increase in aggregate demand, and this increase in aggregate demands put an extra upward pressure on the prices, and this causes inflation according to the Keynesians. So these are the two ways in which demand pull inflation have been explained by two major schools of economic thoughts, the classical school as well as the Keynesian school. And there is a third type of inflation also, which is called mixed demand pull and cost push inflation. This theory, mixed cost push demand pull inflation, says that it's a combination of the demand pull and cost push factors that can result in inflation. Okay, the cost push inflation mixed demand pull and cost push inflation. So the cost push inflation says that it is the pressure from cost sides that leads to inflation. Cost side there are two important factors that can lead to increase in cost. One is the increase in wages and second one is the increase in profits. So it is either the trade union activity or the extra profit desire from the part of the producers which can cause cost push inflation. This is also called markup inflation because it's a marking up. It can result from the marking up of profit by the producers. So this is the second type of inflation, cost push inflation. And so demand pull inflation is the first type, which Keynesians and classicals explain in different ways. Classical explain it in terms of the increase in money supply, and Keynesians explain it in terms of the increase in aggregate demand resulting from increase in the autonomous investment. The second type of inflation is cost push inflation, which attributes inflation to an increase in the cost, mainly increase in the wages or profits. And the third type of inflation is mixed demand pull inflation, which is a combination of the demand pull and cost push factors. So this is due to a spiral of cost and demand that can cause inflation according to the mixed cost push demand pull theories. That is, if there has been an inflation either due to increase in demand or increase in cost, it can lead to other spiraling out of this inflation. Suppose there was an increase in demand due to an increase in the autonomous investment or due to an increase in money supply, then what happens? Then obviously prices will increase, and this will also lead to increase in the cost of production of commodities due to higher prices of inputs, and so there is a pressure from cost side also. Okay. On the other hand, if initially there was an increase in the prices due to cost push factors like an increase in wages or profit, then prices increase, and when wages and profits increase, the income of the people also increase, and this may lead to increase in aggregate demand, and this can also lead to inflation. So this mixed demand pull cost push inflation does not attribute any one single reason for inflation. It says that inflation works in combination, that is a combination of demand pull and cost push factors lead to inflation. So this is the third type of inflation, mixed demand pull cost push inflation, which comes under the causes of inflation. The second type of inflation is due to it has been named based on the speed of inflation or the rate of inflation. There are four types of inflation. The first one is creeping inflation. Second one is walking inflation. Third one is running inflation. And fourth one is hyperinflation. The names itself suggest the speed of each of these inflation. The first one is creeping inflation, which says that creeping inflation is said to happen when the rate of inflation is around 2 to 3% at very low levels of inflation, which is often found in very developed economies. Such inflation is called creeping inflation, and economists says that such an inflation, a creeping inflation, is actually beneficial to the economy because producers have incentive to produce more because their prices are always increasing, and so there is an incentive to produce more, employ more, and therefore economy may expand when there is creeping inflation. Okay, so inflation in the rates of 2 to 3% is called creeping inflation. The second type of inflation is walking inflation. So it is a little faster than creeping inflation. Creeping means you are simply creeping on your belly, and walking means you are a little bit faster. So walking inflation means that inflation in the range of 3 to 5%. Okay, it's higher than the creeping inflation. So it's still not harmful to the economy because inflation is in the manageable levels. Especially this type of inflation is witnessed in most of the developing countries. The money supply and aggregate demand are normally higher, and the economy is facing structural rigidities. Okay, it is because of these factors that walking inflation can happen. This type of inflation is seen in India. Even in India, we have inflation around 4 to 6%. The central bank target for inflation is 4 to 6%. So this type of inflation is called walking inflation. It's faster than creeping, but still it's manageable and it's healthy to the economy. And the third type of inflation is running inflation, and the name implies that it's much faster than walking inflation. It's in the double figures, normally in the early tens or into the teens. Okay, so 10 to 15 or 20% inflation is called running inflation, which is not beneficial to the economy because prices are often fluctuating. People find that the value of their money is not changing frequently, and people begin to lose confidence in the monetary system because the monetary authorities are not able to maintain the purchasing power of money or the value of money. So people begin to suspect the effectiveness of monetary authorities and begin to suspect the monetary policy itself. Such type of inflation is called running inflation. It happens from 10% to 20%, and it's not beneficial to the economy, and economic activities almost come to a standstill because people are not certain about the future, about prices, about profitability, about wages, anything. So the real quantities, the real income, real wages, real interest rate, all these can change frequently due to high rates of inflation, and therefore economic activities almost comes to a standstill. So this is harmful to the economy. And the fourth type of inflation based on the speed or rate of inflation is called hyperinflation. The name itself implies that inflation is hyper, it's quite high, very high. Sometimes inflation can reach even into third figures, 3-digit figures. So such inflation is called hyperinflation. It has also been experienced by many countries, especially some of the Latin American countries where the monetary policy or monetary authorities have been quite ineffective in controlling the growth of money supply. Okay, so this is hyperinflation, and it's extremely harmful to the economy because money can change value from day to day or from hour to hour. There has been instances when people have been going out to purchase commodities with a certain amount of money, and by the time they reach the market, prices have increased and they are not able to buy the commodities. Okay, and there have also been instances when people are going to the banks, going to the market with suitcases of money and returning from the market with packets of commodities. Okay, so this is called hyperinflation. It happens very rarely. It has happened in many Latin American countries like Bolivia, Argentina, sometimes even Venezuela, Russia. These countries have experienced hyperinflation. Okay, it rarely happens. It happens due to political instability or extreme experiments with the monetary system. Okay, so these are the four types of inflation based on the speed or rate of inflation. First one is speeding inflation, second one is walking inflation, third one is running inflation, and finally the fourth one, hyperinflation. Then inflation has also been defined or divided on the basis of constituents of the price index. Constituent of the price index. We already seen that price index is a weighted average of the prices of a basket of commodities. So there are different constants for a price index. It may include food articles, it may include energy, petroleum products. Okay, then it can include construction materials, it can include services, major services. Okay, that are used very commonly by the people. So there are different constituents for a price index, and there has been that means the inflation has been divided into two types based on the differences in constants. First one is called headline inflation, and second one is called core inflation. Second one is called core inflation. So headline inflation is the normal inflation rate, which includes all the commodities that are included in the price index. Okay, so it includes all the major articles of consumption, and it is normally considered this consumer price index and wholesale price index comes under headline inflation. Okay, so this headline inflation is often subject to volatile movements because of its constant, especially because of the presence of food and energy. Food articles, we know that the prices of food articles are constantly changing due to extra economic situations. They are not endogenous to the economic system but exogenous. The prices of food articles can change due to erratic weather and environmental conditions. So these food article prices of the food articles may be erratic due to non-economic factors also. So it may not always reflect the true situation of the economy, and therefore economists began to understand the necessity of developing another type of inflation or price index, which is called core inflation. And in core inflation, we exclude these volatile items like food articles and energy. Okay, so energy also is a volatile commodity, because the prices of energy like petroleum products and natural gas changes frequently due to political reasons. Okay, so you may have observed the crude prices turning violently due to problems in Middle East, or due to news of economic recession, and which may not always realize. Okay, so prices of such commodities can change due to rumors, political reasons, or even due to weather conditions. So in core inflation, we exclude such commodities, especially the food articles and energy items, so that we have a very means sluggish or smooth inflation, which is called core inflation. It is used for policy making because it truly reflects the situation of the economy as against headline inflation. Okay, so these are the two types of inflation based on the constituents of the price index. The headline inflation, which includes all the commodities and services, and core inflation, which excludes the volatile items like food and energy. Okay. So these are the different types of inflation on the basis of causes of inflation, speed or rate of inflation, and constituents of inflation. And we also got a different categorization of inflation based on the people who experience the inflation. So we have divided it into three categories. One is wholesale price index, wholesale price inflation, also known as WPI, consumer price index inflation known as CPI, and producer price inflation known as PPI. First, let's go to WPI. Okay, WPI or wholesale price index inflation. Wholesale price inflation. So I'm rubbing this off, and here the people who experience it. Okay, people experiencing the type of inflation. First one is WPI, second one is CPI, and third one is PPI. WPI, CPI, PPI. WPI means wholesale price inflation. So WPI is applicable to the wholesale sellers or even producers. It is the inflation experienced by these people, wholesalers. So it is not related to the final consumers. And these days, wholesale price inflation is not considered as a policy making tool in India. We have our central bank is considering CPI as a more important policy tool, because it is the rate of inflation which is applicable to the consumers. And CPI means consumer price inflation. Consumer price inflation, or the index measuring consumer price inflation, is known as consumer price index, and the index measuring wholesale prices is called wholesale price index. So consumer price index or consumer price inflation is the inflation experienced by final consumers of the commodity. So there is a major difference between wholesale price inflation or wholesale price index and consumer price index. Wholesale price index is the inflation experienced by wholesalers and producers, whereas consumer price inflation or index is the inflation experienced by final consumers. And another difference between WPI and CPI is that CPI includes services. Whereas WPI excludes services, because there is no real meaning in talking about wholesaling of services. Okay, and the third type of price inflation based on the people who experience it is producer price inflation. As the name itself implies, it is the inflation experienced by producers. Again, this producer price inflation is divided into two categories as output inflation and input inflation. Output inflation means the prices that producers are producing and selling out to the wholesalers, and input inflation means the inflation that is experienced by producers when they are buying inputs to be used in the production process. Okay, so these are the types of inflation. These are the types into which inflation has been divided based on different categories. Okay, thank you.